The story begins with a mysterious hooded man entering the room as the girl was tethered to the wall. Two girls, Mafuyu and Tomo, are seen at the church praying in front of the mark of God, just like how their father instructed them to do so in the past. While Tomo was in a deep sleep, Mafuyu pulled out her wooden sword and plunked her cousin on the head to wake her up. It had been 3 days since Tomo had attended school, and now they were being compelled to make an appearance. As they both ran over to class, Tomo is excited and tripped over. Mafuyu makes fun of her clumsiness and after walks over to greet a transfer student named Teresa, a tall blonde lady. Once they arrive, Mafuyu is surprised that Teresa actually remembered her name when they spoke to one another. However, Tomo is skeptical about Teresa, and Mafuyu replies, saying she feels the same, and she's certain that Teresa was hiding something from everyone as she's always so quiet and mysterious. Even after their conversation, she didn't say one word, and only nodded her head once before leaving the garden. When they entered the classroom, Tomo's table was vandalized by someone in the class. Mafuyu is enraged by this disaster, and looks around the room to spot who's the culprit. After, a brown-haired girl, named Hannah, laughs and said that her desk looked terrible, so she might be the one who done it. In anger, Mafuyu gripped Hannah to the wall, and Hannah furiously informs all the other classmates that Tomo's father, who was the school's ex-headmaster, was in fact the one responsible for the recent murders in the town. She said this because after Tomo's father's absence and leaving his position from the school, he suddenly was missing, and this is when a string of random deaths happened in the town. After Hannah said this, Mafuyu was about to cause a scene, but suddenly a pink-haired girl named Mayuri, the daughter of the current headmaster, reminded Mafuyu that she would be immediately expelled from her dorms if she ever dared, resulting to violence against another student. And as a result, Mafuyu just ignored Hannah's comments. Later it is shown that Teresa is attending the high school, only to investigate more into these recent murders, as the pastor has surmised. Meanwhile, Tomo is running away from Mafuyu as they normally play around after class. While skipping along the way, she bumps into a silvered-haired boy. Mafuyu is surprised, as she noticed that the boy looked a lot like the boy depicted in her uncle's painting in the church. He had only just met the girls, and has already done a heinous act towards Tomo, before he even opened his eyes. Mafuyu is taken aback by his actions and smacked him until he passed out. Tomo thinks she was a bit too harsh against the boy, so they had to take him back to their dorms and take care of him. While he lays down, Tomo was curious as he looked so much like a girl, but Mafuyu disagrees and states that he is definitely a boy. He then abruptly vanished while the two of them were discussing about him behind his back. Due to him leaving so abruptly, Mafuyu stormed out to find him, but just then, she saw the church was ablaze and up in flames, so she races over in hopes to save the painting that her uncle has in the church. But when she went in, she gets caught by the killer. Apparently she specializes in murdering young women and punishes those who don't have a significant other. Mafuyu gets cuffed to the wall and the killer kept talking about how she and Tomo don't fit in and have no friends here in the town. Mafuyu was dejected and is hopeless, so she gave in and is prepared to die. But as the murderer went in, they chose to destroy the uncle's painting on the wall instead of going directly for her. Mafuyu pleaded her to stop all this, but she was unconcerned and goes in for the final blow. But suddenly, the silver-haired boy shows up named Sasha and saves Mafuyu. After assisting in the release of Mafuyu's ties, he was worn out and was out of power. He was weak again as this move drained the abilities from his body. The murderer was a little frightened of the mysterious man and his incredible combat skills, and soon the culprit came to realize this man was Sasha, the strongest atheist. The killer tries to attack him again, but Sasha was exhausted. At this moment, Teresa appeared just in time to help Sasha. After Sasha finishes his business with Teresa, he had regained all his powers again and all the windows in the church were abrupt and shattered to pieces. The killer was in shock when seeing this, and promptly searches for Sasha in the mist, although the boy was actually standing on top of the church, next to the giant holy cross. Mafuyu asks Teresa who he really is, and Teresa explains to her that Sasha is an infamous alchemist throughout the nation, who has received the blessings from Mary herself to control specific elements. He's able to manipulate electrons, control the earth vibrations, and control atomic bonds. With just a single touch, Sasha transforms the cross into a giant scythe, and uses this opportunity to make the murderer feel what it's like to be terrified to his bones, just like how he made all his culprits feel, and after he slays him down easily with just a single slash. After Mafuyu thanked him for saving her, and the concealed youngster quickly left the scene. The following morning Mafuyu went to the same church, but was surprised to see the church looked unscathed from what happened last night. She came in to ask the pastor where Lady Teresa was, but he told her that she was feeling unwell today, so she's resting for the time being. Later in class, Sasha the alchemist appears, and the teacher explains how he is a transfer student. Though he is a few years younger, he still will be attending this class. This was another shock for the girls, as they trembled at the sight of seeing the handsome Sasha. Sasha felt disgusted when Hana and Mayuri came over to his desk and called Sasha by his real name, Alexander. Mafuyu asks him to explain himself, and wants real answers as to who he is and why he was at the church last night, but he told her it's not any of her concern, and it's best if she would forget about it as it would only bring her in danger. After waking from a nightmare, Mafuyu discovered that Tomo wasn't feeling well, so she decided to visit the church by herself while Tomo stayed at home to get some rest. Mafuyu couldn't comprehend what the painting by her uncle meant, and stares at it before leaving the church, mentioning that she needs to figure it all out soon and uncover the secrets he left behind. Later on, Sasha was sitting outside on a bench when Mafuyu came to talk with him. Mafuyu questions him about the recent murders, and was in fear for her life as the murderers knew everything about her and Tomo. She couldn't just sit back and wait for them to reappear and kill them both. However, Sasha didn't care about her matters and what she had to say, which made her believe Sasha had the same intentions as those mysterious murderers. He gets enraged after she talks about him in this manner, putting a knife up to her, and said if she doesn't know what's really going on, then she should just stop talking about it. His only mission was to stop those who dared lay their hands on the seal. He ridiculed Mafuyu for calling him one of the murderers, even though she's got no clue of what's really going on. He spoke to her for a short while, before passing out of hunger. While passed out, Sasha is dreaming. Sasha has a flashback and sees a fragment of his past. When he awakens, he was laying in Tomo's lap. After, Mafuyu came back from cooking some food for everyone and Sasha was going to leave, but the girls wanted him to stay and eat, otherwise he might faint again. After some persuading from Tomo, he finally gave in and had a taste of Mafuyu's soup. The soup was so good that he grabbed the entire plate and kept eating it. As it was so delicious, Sasha eventually agrees to let them all call him by his real name, Alexandra, which normally infuriates him. Teresa then came to escort Sasha back, but before leaving, Teresa tells Mafuyu to be careful. Later on, Mafuyu was still confused by what Teresa's words meant to her, and the topic about Sasha was then brought up by Tomo. She noticed that Mafuyu was happier when Sasha is around, but Mafuyu denies that she likes him. After her bath, Mafuyu told Tomo to go to bed first just in case she catches another fever in the morning. During the entire day, a girl called Ayana has been assisting Mafuyu and has been a huge help organizing her time throughout the day. Mafuyu didn't have time to express her gratitude towards the girl until now. After Tomo leaves, Ayana inquired about what's going on recently, as she and Tomo were unaware of what the others were searching for. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, the murderer from before had returned, and she ends up capturing Ayana, taking her far away into the clouds. When Mafuyu caught up to the killer, she wanted Mafuyu to confess everything she knows about the seal. If not, she will kill Ayana. Mafuyu recalled Sasha's advice that she should always stand up for herself, otherwise she won't be able to save anyone and Tomo will be in danger and the promise she made to her uncle will be worth nothing. At this moment she pretends to surrender by disarming herself and throws the sword down, but then she rushes forward and reveals the killer's face. But once revealed, she didn't expect that it was Tomo under the mask this whole time. She was so shocked and unable to react, but then Sasha and Teresa arrive on top of the nearby roof and help her out. Sasha warns her about the culprit as this killer was playing a trick on Mafuyu and the target wasn't actually Tomo. After all, it was Ayana who was the real mastermind behind these murders, and is only controlling Tomo's body to make her speak these words like a puppet. After her cover is blown, she jumps away, still holding Tomo in her arms. Sasha hurried to finish her off, after gaining some energy from Teresa. Ayana saw Sasha power up, so she did the same thing with Tomo, increasing her strength even more, and was able to spawn deadly daggers, which she used against Sasha. He thought nothing of this as he's known as the best of them all, but they were actually strong enough to crack Sasha's scythe. Her blades were made out of magnesium, a harder metal than Sasha's iron scythe, so she stood tall as she flung more daggers and shattered his blades. She warns Sasha to back down, as he is too weak against her, and announces how Tomo's connection to her is overpowered. He acknowledges that she is more powerful in this situation, but then tells Ayana that she's made him more angry than ever before and uses some kind of new power to heat up his scythe, blocking the incoming daggers, then using parts of his scythe to fire many blades at Ayana. But he still wasn't able to touch her, so she was going to burn Tomo with her ignite ability, but through some fast-thinking chemistry, he harnesses the power to create elements, and was able to put out the flames, using parts from his heated scythe which were oxidized. Sasha then ran towards Ayana, melting through her weapons and impaling her, and finally ending her off. He then gave Tomo to Mafuyu, and warned her that now Tomo's energy has been found out to be the main source, she will be their #1 target by the rest of the bad guys. Mafuyu was too scared after this event, and Sasha swore to defend Tomo at all times, only if Mafuyu was reluctant to leave this academy immediately. Despite what Mafuyu thought of him, they had to share their home with Sasha, which baffled Mayuri. That night, Sasha stood beside Tomo's bed as she slept, with his attention drawn towards the power of her body who the seal keepers want to take to become stronger. Suddenly, Mafuyu burst in and sees Sasha standing there watching over her and asked him why he was in her room, which Sasha replied, saying he was doing some well-needed research on Tomo's endless power. He continued to explain the details to Mafuyu while looking at Tomo sleeping. Sasha then awakens from his nightmare. He yelled loudly, which prompted the girls to rush in. When Tomo cautiously wiped away his sweat, he was actually more interested in her, rather than being afraid from the nightmare. But Mafuyu angled, and she was surprised after he mentioned he wasn't interested in her, the same way he likes Tomo. Sasha sat in opposition, and even though he was a guest in their home, he still told them to leave his room. It's only when Sasha pointed out that Mafuyu wasn't dressed properly that she came running out of the room. Later in class, Mafuyu hurled her rage onto her notebook as she seems to hate and love Sasha. Meanwhile, Sasha was getting everyone's admiration by solving a really difficult task given by the teacher and mocks the teacher as the lesson was so easy. After class, Mafuyu took him out to remind him not to be disrespectful to the teacher, but Sasha disregarded her. After Mayuri approached him to compliment him on his talent and knowledge, trying to befriend him. However, Sasha didn't want her to approach him, or he will just start avoiding her even more. During the swimming class, Sasha sat by the pool for the entirety of the lesson. Mayuri promised to force Sasha to follow school rules in a furious manner. Hana then decided to try her own method. She hurried over to Mafuyu and Tomo, and began to speak of the Ayana going missing and that she knows mysterious things happen when people hang around Mafuyu. Sasha then interrupted their bullying, and just as Mayuri was about to start crying, he dealt with these bullies by squeezing her chest and informed her how Tomo is way more superior to her and she is unmatched compared to her. After class, Sasha will need to meet with the pastor due to recent events happening in the town. So Sasha went to the church after class. He informed Sasha that he's made his position known to all the bad guys. Unfortunately, he couldn't leave since he had pledged that he would protect Tomo. No longer terrified of the enemies, he even wished for their arrival. Later on, Mafuyu prepared a room for Sasha, and she reminded him that this was a girls' dorm, therefore going forward, he is instructed to knock before going into any of the rooms. After Sasha was getting used to the room, the girls were in the bathroom getting ready, but after they came back to his dorm and saw Sasha had left, so they went seeking for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Mafuyu went to the church to look for him because she had an idea of where he might be. When they got there, we see Sasha replenishing his powers with Teresa. While trying to avert Tomo's gaze, Mafuyu thought that Sasha was only young, and so she thought of herself as his guardian, so she was forced to come here even though she didn't want to. Elsewhere, a girl named Kuri appears with a black coffin. She refers to this coffin as Mama and is protecting it at all costs. Kuri and the coffin were traveling on their way to Japan. Suddenly, several robbers burst into the room, demanding to open up the coffin. However, as soon as they did, something dreadful awakens from it, sending them to the afterlife. The following morning, Kuri, the girl who was protecting the coffin, is picked up by Mayuri and Hara. At first, Hana didn't seem too keen on meeting Kuri, but when she laid eyes on her properly, she was fixated about her. Meanwhile, Kuri saw Sasha and his friends as they were passing by in the car and gave a light grin. Kuri and Mayuri and Hana went to a clothing store to try on a few outfits for Kuri. While they are there, Hana has caught feelings for Kuri, and this came clear when they were left alone together. Hana was requested to help with Kuri's dress. Hana's heart was pounding, but suddenly Kuri passed out. She waited for Hana to come close enough to kiss her, then Hana was surprised when Kuri got up and caught her trying to touch her. Kuri called upon her mama to arrest Hana for the act. There was no denying Hana's intentions based on her behavior. She tried to deny it, but Kuri came forward and told Hara what kind of person she truly was. Hana would then serve as her assistant going forward. Mafuyu continued to buy stuff aggressively in the mall, but she essentially paid a ridiculous cost for the items, which ultimately alarmed Sasha. According to Mafuyu, this was a method for saving money. Suddenly a handsome man was looking for someone, then he approached and handed them a flyer, even though this was the safest country in the world. Terrible atrocities continued to happen. Before leaving, Mafuyu still wanted to visit one more location. Tomo suggested going to the retail district, and Tomo was in the shop having trouble choosing her next items due to finding the correct sizes. Mafuyu ran over to give Teresa some suggestions. However, Teresa wasn't very convinced. She just needed it to be convenient for her while in a certain situation. She needed something she could quickly unclip when they needed to power up Sasha. Sasha accompanied them while they were doing their business, and his reasoning is that he was there to protect them, but Mafuyu dragged him out calling him names. Suddenly, when Tomo and Teresa finished trying on their new clothes, the store clerk came in with a taser and captured them. When Mafuyu returned to the store, the clerk informed her that Teresa and Tomo had left, and tells them to check the emergency exit. However, Mafuyu didn't believe her as Tomo wouldn't have left without them. Sasha entered the room and checked the area. He informs Mafuyu that he can smell a weird scent of electricity. He then quickly disarmed the clerk of her taser and found the trap door where they were keeping Tomo. At the moment, Tomo was being photographed by strange men and Teresa was tethered to a chair. Before they could proceed, Sasha bursts through the room and uses his powers to eliminate the capturers. Then Sasha inquired Teresa on how this could ever happen, since she was with Tomo and was meant to watch over her, but she replied that she was distracted due to being excited while shopping. Suddenly, Kuri came out of the ground with the coffin and started attacking them all. Mafuyu was terrified and was on the verge of calling the police. Sasha knows that Kuri is using copper as her main element to fight him, so after recharging his powers, he began to retaliate his element of iron, known to be far stronger and tougher. Yet he couldn't cut through her copper as she laughs at him, and instead Sasha got caught and tied up in the elastic vines of copper. Kuri tells him about the magical wonders of copper and its many advantages before using Kappa's most common trait, which absorbs electric, and electrocuted Sasha. She then proceeds to grip him to a wall. When Sasha turned out not to be as powerful as rumored to be, Kuri shied off in disappointment. To help Sasha win, Mafuyu drenched Kuri and her coffin mama in water, so if she used her electricity skill again then she'll be shocked as well. After a little talk with Teresa, Kuri decides to retreat for now. Kuri then returns to Mayuri and Hana. When Mayuri saw that Kuri was completely soaked in water, Kuri made up a story that a silver-haired boy did this to her, which Mayuri assumed it was Sasha, which infuriated her. One of the 12 apostles was Kuri and is related to Sasha, so she could actually be an ally, but Mafuyu nor Sasha had any idea of this knowledge at the time. But if Kuri has nefarious plans, then she would be rather troublesome for them instead, as she is pretty strong. Sasha explains that he was able to defeat her all on his own, even without Mafuyu's help, which the girls found cute of him. Later on, Mayuri was disappointed to know that Kara wasn't going to live with her, as she looks at Kuri as her sister. However, Kuri's accommodations has already been decided. Hana was returning to her apartment. When she got home, she discovered that Kuri was going to live with her from now on because a master and slave must share a place together. Kuri seizes Hana, making it impossible for her to refuse. However, thanks for watching part 1. If you enjoyed this and want to see a part 2, please comment below and I will see you all on the next anime recap. Until next time guys, take care.